My name, as Sheik mentioned, is Brittany. I am the Marketing and Enrollment Coordinator here at PA Virtual. And today what I would like to go ahead and do is share with you guys some of my family. So typically whenever we think of pets and stuff, we think of those fun furry animals. And don't get me wrong, I love them too. We have 2 dogs ourselves. But sometimes, we don't think about some of the other animals that we can go ahead and have, or don't realize how wonderful pets they can be. So what I want to do is, let me switch over my cameras here, and I'm going to introduce you to my 2 ball pythons. And the first one I'm going to introduce is the younger of the 2. This is Cleopatra. Now, they may have female names technically, but we did find out later on that they're actually males. But we love them anyway, so we decided not to change their name. Now, Cleopatra here, or we just call him Cleo, is actually in the beginning stages of starting to shed. So right now he's in something what we call blue shed, or the blue stage. And if you look, his eyes are like cloudy and blue. And he's a very dull color. Can we go ahead? Yeah, we can see that. And he has a super pink belly. So what's happening is that he's getting ready to shed that current layer of scales. And so they can go ahead and get a new shed come up underneath that. So we're going to put him there for now.
I will say Cleo looks cute, but I feel Cleo looks cute because he's not in the same room as me.
So our bigger boy of the 2 is Medusa. And again, we thought that they were both females. So we have Cleopatra and Medusa. And he is a bigger boy, but he is not in shed. So if we take a look, he has, come here, bud. He has really, really pretty eyes. But you can see he's nice and big. And we're going to go ahead and put these guys down here so you can see them and watch them play around. And we're going to go over just a little bit of information about them. So these 2 specifically are bald pythons. Now, there are about 26 species of pythons. So just ball pythons are just one of the many that are out there, okay? Now, pythons specifically are constrictors. And this means that they actually wrap around their prey. Somebody had mentioned earlier how much they love rattlesnakes, for example. Rattlesnakes are a venomous snake that strike with front fangs. These guys, they don't have those 2 big front fangs, so they're not venomous. They're not going to go ahead and sink those fangs that you see in scary movies and stuff. Nope, they are. They have actually a bunch of little teeth that are. Let's see. It's like they're barbed backwards. So whenever they eat something, they can actually pull it in. And so they're really, like I said, overall, they're pretty docile. They are actually great for your first snake pet because they are so docile. The reason that they go ahead and they're called bald pythons is their specific method for defense is to go ahead and curl up into a ball and shove their head in the middle to protect themselves. Most other snakes will go ahead, some of them will play dead. Some of them will strike or hiss at you, or like rattlesnakes, they'll rattle their tail to give you a warning. These guys, they're lazy, I guess you can say. And instead of lashing out, they're going to go ahead and curl up in a ball and just try to protect themselves. So they are extremely docile guys. And actually, another thing that they've been called is in Europe, they are called royal pythons. So they are actually not even called by ball pythons. That was something that the Americans came up with.
Hey,
And,
Brittany,
yeah.
I just want to stop you for a second. It's
Sure.
a little hard to hear you.
Oh, really?
If you could turn up your volume a little bit if possible. Also, a couple of you I'm seeing either with plush snakes. I hope they're plush snakes. If you have some real snakes, that's crazy. But I'm seeing a couple of you with like snakes on camera too. So if you do have something that's kind of snaky, if you will, feel free to show it on camera. I'll make sure to shout you out too, because they look really cool.
All right, how about now? I think it auto defaulted to the wrong microphone.
Yeah, this
So
sounds great.
there we go. Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me better now. Sorry about that. So as I was saying, over in Europe, the ball python is actually referred to as royal pythons. And what they used to do is actually wear them as jewelry. These guys, like I said, they love love. They like attention. They are very docile. So what they used to do is take these guys and wrap them around their arms and stuff. Oh, come here, big guy. And they would wrap them around and they'd actually wear them around as jewelry, as bracelets and as necklaces. And oh, think about that of a long day for a snake, huh? Just chilling out on somebody's neck or arm all day. And that's what royalty used to do. So these guys are originally from Africa. They're from the, sorry about that. They're actually from, excuse me, the Savannah Desert. A lot of people think that they actually live in the jungle and stuff, and they are actually from the desert, or sometimes they go along the forest edges. They do climb trees, but it's not as common as you would think. Other snakes enjoy climbing trees. These guys, not so much, but they do enjoy getting some height sometimes. I know earlier somebody also had mentioned about what they eat. So these guys, they go ahead and they currently eat rats. I go ahead and do frozen rats. We don't prefer to do live rats. Personally, I just don't find it as humane, but also it is dangerous for the snake. If you go ahead and especially you're not watching these guys, the mice and the rats can go ahead and attack the ball pythons. And remember, what do? They just curl up in a ball and try to protect themselves, right? So if the mice happen to start chewing on them or anything like that, so that's not a good thing. So you always want to go ahead and make sure you're watching whenever, if you do have something like this, that nothing is hurting them while they're eating. The other thing is in the wild, they do go ahead and catch things like rats, mice, other small prey like that, gerbils, anything that they can go ahead and basically find out in the wild. But these guys, of course, they are captive. They were captive bred, so they're used to just eating those frozen worms or frozen rats, and they're perfectly fine with those. And in general, ball pythons, they can go ahead and get about, normally their average size is 3 to 5 feet. These guys, Medusa, the bigger one, is just a little over 4 foot, and Cleo, the smaller one, is just about 4 feet. And they're both males, so they probably won't get much bigger. But females can typically range up to 6 feet even, so the females are definitely bigger. As for lifespan, these guys can actually live 20 to 50 years. So the captive breds or the captive snakes do have longer lifespans. So if you are ever thinking about getting a snake, it's not a short-term commitment. It is a longer-term commitment. But I tell you what, these guys make fantastic pets. And Medusa's over here. Oh, getting out of my shot. He's going over against the edge. Come here, bud.
Medusa has had enough. He is taking lunch. He's over. He's over it.
Yeah.
Hey, do you mind if I ask you a couple questions? I know I'm interrupting a little bit, but
nope, you're fine.
So someone had asked, about the markings because they look a little different. Did the markings present anything?
So the markings is actually something I was going to mention. They are called morphs. And there is over 5,000 different morphs for ball pythons. So even though they're all ball pythons, they all have different patterns. Now, Cleo here is considered a normal. So whenever you think of a traditional ball python, this is pretty much what you're talking about. Now, again, he is a little darker right now because he's getting ready to shed. But as you can see, he has those nice markings and patterns. His tummy is a little different because he has a little bit more speckles on him. Normal ball pythons tend to just be white here instead of the speckles. They're ticklish on their tummies too. So You can see, you can watch them, they get a little, they're like, hey, don't tickle me. Huh. And Medusa here, he is considered a pinstripe. And you can tell by, you can see he has this nice stripe pattern that goes the whole way down him. And him too, he has a pretty tummy too. But you can see he has some nice patterns there, a whole bunch of speckles. So I have a normal and we have a pinstripe. So you can go online though. I definitely recommend checking some of them out. They have really crazy and beautiful patterns. I always, I'm looking, we go to reptile shows and stuff, and it's incredible how gorgeous they can be.
And I just want to mention, I see all of you asking the questions. We will ask questions towards the end. So I see all the questions about, what else do they eat, and mention the habitat again, and does it hurt when they grow? Also, I just wanted to mention that I've seen all of you, so many of you have snake stuff. Emma, Gideon, I'm seeing that Sydney had some snake stuff. I believe I saw someone else too holding up snake. I never had snake stuff as a kid, so it's cool to see all of you, so many different snake things. It's really neat. But I just wanted to remind you, don't think I'm ignoring you. I promise we are going to answer your questions. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that. Continue, Brittany. I'm sorry.
Not a problem. So a couple other more things about these guys is they are nocturnal, so they are definitely more active at night than during the day, but we still do give them attention during the day and still love them. They are actually a very easy pet to care for. We have them in it's a little bigger than a 20-gallon tank. Where are you going, bud? About a little bigger than a 20-gallon tank. We clean out their tanks completely about once a month. We do spot checks though, just to make sure that they didn't make a mess anywhere. And we feed them. Medusa here gets fed about once every 6 weeks because, he is a little bit bigger, and he actually was obese there for a while. So you do have to watch, just like anything else. They can eat too much and gain a little extra weight, but we have his weight back down to a good weight, even though he is, again, rather large for a male. Cleo, on the other hand, eats about once every 3 or 4 weeks because he is smaller and he just needs a little bit more food. And come here. And he's like, nope, I'm done. I don't want to look at you guys anymore. I'm gonna go check this out instead. And they are escape artists though. So as with any animal that you have in aquariums or stuff like that, you need to make sure that they're sealed up tight. Both of these guys have escaped a couple times. Luckily, we found them in the house, is safe and sound, but you always need to make sure to go ahead and remember to check on them daily. And also, they do have poor eyesight. These guys, come here, let me go ahead and get you up here. These guys have very poor eyesight, so instead, what they do is they use their infrared heat-seeking pits. So if we look here on their snoot, you can see that little row of all those little pits above his mouth. Those aren't nostrils, they're actually infrared heat-seeking pits. So between that and, of course, his smelly flicker going, look at his tongue going. He just wants to know what's going on. That's how they figure out what's around them. So they can tell by the warmth of people for his pits, those little pits up there. And then his tongue actually smells everything around it. So that way he can figure out, what are you? Are you food? Are you something that I like? Are you something that I don't like? What's going on? So that is how they go ahead and figure stuff out more than eyesight. So come here. Oh, there you go, big boy.
Now, you mentioned, Miss Brittany, that you have a dog, and I've seen like some people here who have smaller dogs. Someone said they had a pug. Like, if you had a pug and they were near the snake, would either be in danger?
Technically, no. So every snake is different, though. You have to remember that. Every snake has their own personality. Now, these two guys, they will be 5 this summer. Both of them will be 5. One will be 5. Medusa will be 5 next month. Cleo will be 5 in September. We've had them since they were just a couple months old, and we handled them a lot. So as you can see, they're very calm, they're very docile, they really don't care that you hold them. A bigger thing is because we held them so much and everything, they are not head shy. A lot of snakes are head shy. These guys are not, because we gave them so much attention and everything. So with proper love and handling, they are definitely nice and docile. That being said, of course, they're going to know the difference in smell with their food. And if it doesn't smell like a mouse or rat, then they normally want nothing to do with it. I have been bit once by each of them, but both times was my fault because I was handling a mouse beforehand, so my hand smelled like it. I put my hand in front of their face and they were like, oh, you smell like a mouse and you're warm, so I'm gonna go ahead and strike at you. But honestly, guys, I would rather have my snakes bite me than my dogs bite me. Because it really isn't that bad. Again, they don't have those two big front fangs. They don't have, their Cleo's going through the tube. Come here, bud. Out of the shot. People want to look at your beautifulness. There you go. So I mean, they can bite, but it's not likely as long as, again, they've been socialized properly. You are making a clear difference that you don't smell like rats is the biggest thing. Like I said, that was my fault, but they're not going to go ahead and just randomly attack stuff. They're not just going to randomly attack your dogs or cats or whatever. We have our beagle. He can care less about the snakes. Our Doberman, she did not care for the snakes when we first got them, but now she can care less too. And of course, the snakes can really care less about the dogs. So, but it's always remember, whenever you have animals like this, they are still different species. So you do need to go ahead and watch them and make sure that they're not going to go ahead and hurt each other or anything like that. So I don't recommend leaving them unattended by themselves with other animals because you don't want them to get hurt either.
It's funny, Marcellus just mentioned something about a Doberman, and I had put in chat, oh, Dobermans are big. They probably don't worry about snakes. And you just mentioned something about a Dobie too. So go figure. Now, like I'm looking, some other people are sharing just their pets. Like Maya has her guinea pig out. So it's a guinea pig is kind of in the rodent family. Would a guinea pig be in major danger if they were near Chloe or Medusa?
Great question. So I personally wouldn't recommend it just in case, but on average, you're basically, these guys aren't going to eat something bigger than the biggest part of their body. So there goes Cleo through the tube. So for Medusa here, oh, come here, big boy. We can see the biggest part of his belly is right around here. So we don't want to feed him anything bigger than that big around, which is about how big around his rats are that we feed him. So even though they have that wee tiny head, anything that's basically as big around as their biggest part is what they can go ahead and get down. Now, in the wild, technically, things like gerbils and stuff, they will eat their opportunity hunters. So if it is there, then they'll go ahead and do it. But since they were born in captivity, we've kept them in captivity, they have a regular feeding schedule and everything. I personally, with these particular snakes, because of how we handle them and everything, I wouldn't be too concerned about it. But of course, better safe than sorry. You see all the time online that cats will get along with birds, but not all cats like birds, not all birds like cats, right? It's the same way with snakes. Everybody is unique, everybody's different, and sometimes we get along and sometimes we don't. Oh, bud, get back over there.
Okay, so like Deanie, I see that you're showing your cat on camera. Maybe they get along with snakes, maybe they don't, but they're not normal enemies, just, like how dogs and cats are, right?
Right, well, I don't know. Our Doberman is petrified of cats too. So, so like I said, you never know. It all depends on their personalities. So,
Farah did ask a question that I just wanted to ask too. 'Cause, I'm curious. You might get into answering this, but where do snakes go to the bathroom?
Wherever they want, and should have been a red flag when we first got these guys, that they could have possibly been male. Cleo used to pee on me all the time when he was little, like all the time. It was awful. And here he was actually doing something they called musking, which is something males will do just to kind of, hey, either territory or get away from me or leave me alone or whatever whatever it might be. He definitely outgrew it because we did socialize them so much. They're nice and calm and docile now. Luckily, they no longer go to the bathroom on us. Medusa has only ever actually went to the bathroom on my husband once, but that was it. And basically they just go in their pen. Medusa is really funny. They have two HUDs in their pen. So they have a warm side and a cold side. And wherever he goes, he won't go back in there. So that's nice. He doesn't like to, hang out with his poop, which I don't blame him. Who wants to do that, right?
Now, why do you need a warm side and a cold side for the snakes?
That's a great question. So reptiles are cold-blooded, which means they cannot go ahead and regulate their own body temperature. So they need that to go ahead and help them regulate their body temperature. That being said, you do have to be very careful because, for example, unfortunately, one time the heating probe that goes ahead and monitors the temperature got loose out of Medusa's, and it got a little too hot for him, and it actually burnt his tummy a little bit. Luckily, not very bad at all, but unfortunately, they're like if we put our hand on the stove, we know it's hot right away and we pull away, right? Like we know not to do that. That hurts. These guys, it takes them a little bit longer to recognize, oh, this is really hot. It's too hot for me. I better move. So it's important that we help them go ahead and regulate their body heat as well. But that's what they'll do. They'll travel back and forth in between their hot side and their cold side to help regulate that body temperature. It's kind of like us. If we want to cool down, what do? We go hop in front of the AC or something, right? Well, they don't have that luxury, but they do go into the cooler side of their habitat to help regulate that.
And there's one other question. I know there's other info you wanted to give, Miss Brittany, so I apologize, but
Oh, you're fine.
so many questions. Lulu and Bella wanted to know, like, do they play or not? Because I imagine you don't play fetch with the snakes, right?
No, that is another nice thing about snakes is um, they're not like other pets like dogs that are constantly demanding that your love, right? Like our dogs are constantly at us. They constantly want to play or have attention or whatever the case may be. A lot of the time snakes they're fine with either way. If you want to go ahead and get them out and hold them and have, some time with them, great. And then you put them back and then they're great. They're fine. So it's nice that way too. We go ahead and I take them outside with me. I take them for walks around my neck, or when I play video games, they'll go ahead and chill out around my neck sometimes or around my wrist, even though sometimes they can get too involved and too adventurous and they try to wander off. But that's how we go ahead. Obviously, snakes don't really play fetch per se, but we do go ahead and we still hold them, we pet them, we give them attention. He's going out of the box again. Come here, bud. And the nice thing is, like I said, it's one of those things of when we have time, when we want to, we're going to handle them. But if we have to go do something, we don't have to worry about, oh, are they going to be okay? Oh, we haven't went ahead and, pet them for 20 minutes or brushed them out today or anything like that. So they are lower maintenance animals. But it is important, especially whenever they're first getting used to you, that you're giving them enough attention that they do become the nice and docile guys that you see here.
Now, someone asked this question, and I know that there's a story behind it. So Elizabeth wanted to know, have they ever escaped the cage? And I know you have a story behind that. So I thought it'd be a good transition to tell us about how they decided to go on their own little adventure one day.
Oh, absolutely. So Medusa here is definitely our escape artist. He's gotten out more times, but he's never had big adventures. Cleo is the one that had the big adventure. So one day he was able, we didn't lock stuff up tight like we should have, and he ended up getting out. And the next morning, we didn't know it. I came down, he wasn't there. We searched the entire house. I was completely flipping out, couldn't find my snake. It was the first time we ever lost one of them too. So I was really, really upset. He was just a little thing then. And we have them upstairs in our living room. And he got the whole way downstairs, crawled underneath the basement door, went down the steps, and decided to hide down in the corner of the basement. I have no idea how I managed to find him there, but he definitely went on a long adventure, because that is quite a truck for these little guys. They are slower moving animals, so that does help. A lot of snakes, how many of them you see, are super fast, and they can zoom away like, you know, the little garter snakes or black snakes that you see, you can find out in your yard and stuff. These guys, luckily, are a bit slower. They're not as quick and speedy, so we were able to find them. But yeah, the other times, for example, whenever Medusa's gotten out and has just been chilling around in the living room, our Doberman started barking at her, and we had no idea what was going on. And here she noticed that the snake got out. So they definitely are good escape artists. Most snakes are good escape artists. So your best bet is to always make sure everything is closed up nice and tight, because you never know. Come here, bud.
So now you mentioned both Medusa and Cleo are 5. How long do snakes normally live, especially these ball pythons?
So in captivity, they can go ahead and normally anywhere from 20 to 50 years. So there has been, actually out in Philadelphia, there was a ball python that I do believe reached 49 and a half years old. So they definitely can have nice long lives if they're properly taken care of. And so just, you know, if you are thinking about getting a snake, these guys do have a bit of longer lifespans, but it's always good to remember to look into that, because they are not a short-term commitment. They are, they are a longer-term commitment pet. But again, luckily they are lower maintenance, and if you handle them and give them that socialization, I think that they are absolutely a joyous thing. I personally have done photo shoots with these guys. We celebrate their birthday every year. So they get cute little party hats, and I take their picture. And again, it's because they are so socialized and they're so docile now that they can definitely go ahead and handle that. I have thought previously before about doing other educational things with these guys that kids can handle in person, because they are just, like I said, so kind, so loving. They definitely do not mind being held whatsoever. Like I said, they are very, very friendly. They're not head shy. I mean, I was really hoping I'd be able to show you guys their teeth, but as you can see, of course, he's not going to like that very much. But they do have, just like I said, little tiny things that face backwards, just those little teeth. They don't have the big, huge teeth in front, but yeah, like I said, he really enjoys hands. He really likes holding hands. Now, I know that earlier you guys were all talking about hugs and stuff, and they do squeeze. They do like their constrictors, so they do squeeze. They do like, especially Cleo will end up doing this here soon, especially when they're in shed. They want to get that skin off. Like, think of it whenever you get a sunburn and your skin starts to flake off. You don't like that, right? You just want to get that stuff off, right? Well, they do too. So they will squeeze if you're holding them then to try to get that off. But even still, they're not going to go ahead and be that intensive where either you or your parent wouldn't be able to pull them off. They are just a big tube of muscle. They really are. But again, we are definitely stronger than they are. So they're not going to be able to, like you think of those big, huge anacondas that wrap around people and stuff. No, these guys aren't going to do anything like that to you. As you can see, they're not huge, gigantic beasts or anything like that, but they're still nice size. It's one of those things, you respect them, they'll respect you. You're nice and kind to them, they're not going to have any reason to be mean or anything like that to you.
So Hector wanted to know why snakes' skin feel that way. Like they feel kind of, he described it as silky. But why, what's up with the scales and the silkiness of their skin?
That is an excellent point because a lot of people think of snakes and they think slimy. That is not right. Silky is the perfect example, especially right after they shed. So I'm really looking forward to Cleo. After he sheds, he will be so nice and smooth and silky. As you can see, they kind of glisten, and they're nice and smooth, but right after they shed, they get really nice and silky. And it's not slimy, it's not wet, it's nothing like that. Uh, if any, it's trying to think of something else good to describe it as. I definitely recommend going to a reptile show or any kind of pet expo, or even, local pet stores have them as well. I recommend going out and just holding one. I mean, it doesn't have to be for very long or anything like that, but just to experience that feeling, because they definitely are unique and fantastic.
Now, Paul wants to know how often do they shed?
That depends. Right now, they don't shed very often because they're not growing as much. Every time they grow, they shed because they need to make more room. So their scales get bigger every time they shed. So Cleo shed, I want to say 2 months ago. It's been a while. And normally these guys shed roughly around the same time. So Medusa will probably end up shedding here within the next week or two as well. And it really all depends. When they're smaller, they're going to shed a lot more because they grow a lot quicker, just like you guys. When you're younger, you grow more, right? And then once you hit a certain age, you don't really just, you stop growing. And they're the same way. They're coming up on actually being their max size. So normally 4+ years is whenever they start to set in and actually get their permanent size. But that being said, they're still going to continue to shed because they want to get off any damaged scales, or believe it or not, they even shed their eye caps. Now, snakes don't have eyelids, so they don't blink like you and I. They have eye caps, and they actually shed those off as well. So sometimes they'll get little dents in them or stuff like that, and they shed to get those imperfections off and be able to go ahead and feel better.
What do you do with the, like, once they shed their skin? I mean, what do you do with it? Do you just like throw it away? Do you save it?
Most of the time we just pitch it because they tend to make a mess. They're not very good at shedding all the time. Sometimes they'll get it off really easily and it comes into this nice, beautiful long piece, and then we go ahead and save them. But for the most part, they tend to break them off on stuff whenever they push and try to move around and rub against stuff to get the skin off. It tears and breaks, and then it just doesn't look nice, so we end up throwing it away. But I do have a couple of them that I've saved just because they came out nice and whole and they looked cool and pretty.
Now, River had a very good question. And I'm interested in this too, because one of the things that I like to do, I am a dog sitter. So I will watch, people's dogs. If you were to call me and say, I'm going out of town, I need you to watch my snake, I would say no. What do you do if you need to go out of town? Like, do you have snake sitters? Are they okay being by themselves for a day or two?
Great question. So it depends on the length that you're leaving and your setup, because obviously we don't have to worry about feeding these guys, right? They only get fed once every few weeks. So we don't have to worry about that. But we do have to worry because remember, same way with any kind of electronical device, things can malfunction. And as I mentioned earlier, Medusa has gotten a little burnt before because of a malfunction with the heating pads. So if you're going over for a long weekend, technically, yes, you could go ahead and leave them home alone. What we would do is we would have somebody just stop in and check on them, just make sure that their temperature's good and that they're okay. We went away 2 years ago for a whole week, And since it was our first time leaving the snakes for that long, we did have a friend watch who also has snakes. So that wasn't, a big deal for them. They already have a couple snakes, so they were perfectly fine over there and watching them. But on average, you can leave them alone, like I said, for a long weekend and stuff. They'll be fine. They have, as long as you give them their water and stuff, they don't need to be fed on a daily basis. So that's not a big deal. But if you're going away for more of a long-term thing, I would recommend at least having somebody stop in and check in on them, because you never know what can happen whenever it comes to the electronics. And of course, we don't want them to either not have enough heat, or if the heat malfunctions and it gets too hot there for them.
Okay, guys, we're going to wrap up a little bit in about maybe 5 minutes or so. However, I'm going to try to get to all your questions, so feel free to rapid fire with some of your questions. If we don't get to your questions and you really want to know, I have no problem with asking Miss Brittany and emailing you guys. I do see Jennifer T and your son has so much snake stuff. I mean, the amount of snake stuff that I'm seeing is pretty awesome. So I'm just going to do some rapid fire with you, Miss Brittany. Is that okay?
Absolutely, shoot me.
All right, Sarah wants to know, do they drink water and how often?
They do drink water, and it is very, very cute. They stick their little snoots in and their little cheeks puff out. It really depends. Since they eat frozen rats, they don't get as much water from them as they would a live rat, for example. So we definitely have to make sure that they have water in their bowls at all time, because they tend to sneak. Cleo, you don't see drinking very much. He's a very, very sneaky one. But Medusa, you will get to see him every now pop out and start sucking away. It's really cute. I definitely recommend asking your parents to look up a video of snakes drinking, because it's adorable.
So I know there was another question about how, some dogs and cats, they really don't like it when it rains and they react a little weird. Do your snakes react differently depending on the weather?
Actually, not that I've noticed. They seem to be, they are pretty chill and lax at all times. They are really just, they're just chill dudes. They can really care less pretty much about anything. They do like to go on adventures and search and all of that stuff, but I haven't noticed weather really bothering them. The only thing that happens is in winter, whenever it's colder, they don't eat as often.
Okay. And, someone asked, where did you get your snakes in particular? You said that, when they're in the wild, they were in like the Sahara Desert, but how did your snakes become captive?
Absolutely. So we got ours specifically from a reptile breeder. So they actually bred snakes, which is what I recommend. You never want to get a wild caught snake. They are in the wild for a reason. That's where they belong. But if you're going to get a snake or looking to getting a snake, I definitely recommend getting them from a certified breeder of snakes. Even places like Petco and stuff, I don't recommend getting snakes from, because they don't have the knowledge and so on to go ahead and properly care for them. So look up, you can find reptile expos and other like events for reptiles. I definitely recommend it just to go check them out. Even if you're not going to get one, it's very, very entertaining and a great educational experience too.
How heavy can the snakes get?
So last time I did this last summer for you guys with the snakes, and I forgot to weigh these guys. This time I did go ahead and weigh them ahead of time. And Medusa is actually 1,769 grams, or 3.9 pounds. And that's pretty much as big as he's going to get. Cleo actually lost a little weight from last year, and he is about 2.5 pounds. And on average, the males range pretty much around what they are. Medusa is definitely a big boy, but Cleo is your average size of a male snake. The females, though, can get about twice as heavy sometimes. So the females are larger, but normally you figure an average of 2 to 5 pounds for these snakes in general.
Someone else wanted to know as far as like with ages, dogs, they say for 1 year, it's every 7 years for dogs. Is it like that with snakes?
Not that I have noticed or realized. Nothing that I've read, I've ever found anything like that. I'm sure that there's something weird out there of some kind of comparison to relate to us. But since they do have a longer life in general compared to like our dogs and stuff, 20 to 50 years for a snake is pretty good.
And you mentioned that they pee and poop anywhere they want to, but like where did they pee and poop from? Like, is it out of their tail? Is it out of their mouth? Like how's that work?
That's a good question too. So actually these guys, they just have one spot. Come here, let me have your butt. Whew. Here we go. Come here, bud. It's like, don't flip me over. I don't like to be flipped over. And they only have one exit, I guess you could say, here, and they actually had little pelvic spurs right beside it. So that was from way back whenever they used to have legs and stuff when they were evolving and all that fun stuff. But yeah, everything's from one spot. The females are the same way. Whenever they lay eggs, they all come from the same spot. And they all have, like I said, there's little pelvic spurs as well. And his aren't as big because he's smaller, but you can still see it's the last scale. There's all these single scales, and then it starts to become double scales. So technically, this right there, that's his tail. That is technically all his tail. That's all he is. So he's not all tail. He's not all neck. There is a distinct part of right there. That's just his tail. And I'm sorry, bud. Yeah, they're not impressed with that, huh? They don't like showing off your parts, huh? Aw, come here, bud.
All right, so we're going to wrap up here. If you want, you keep on asking questions, and I'll make sure that, hey, like we answer them tomorrow. But Brittany, is there one more or any other fun fact that you want to point out before we leave for today?
Oh, well, I definitely want to say thank you for everybody for showing up and experiencing this with me and getting to see them and asking all of the wonderful questions. I definitely recommend, like I said, checking out a snake, even if you don't get one, even if you're scared of them, even just going to the pet store and just looking at them. There tends to be more of a negative stigma with snakes, but you know what? Just like people, not all snakes are mean, not all snakes are wonderful. It's just like everybody, we all have our own personalities. Every snake has their own personality as well. And just remember to respect them. They are different than wild snakes. There is a big difference between captive snakes and wild snakes. So please don't just start going out in the yard and picking up snakes here and there, because you never know. These guys, they were captive bred, so there is a difference. And just be open-minded. And like I said, you love them, they'll love you back.
And one other quick thing, does it hurt them when they grow? I know sometimes when we grow, it might hurt here or there. Does it hurt them when they shed?
It can be very uncomfortable for them if they can't get it off, or sometimes it sticks, but it doesn't necessarily hurt them. Of course, I'm not them, so I can't go ahead and feel what they're feeling, but in general, it's normally an easy process. But if their environment is too dry and they can't get enough moisture to help get the scales off, it can go ahead and have problems. But in general, as long as you have their humidity good and everything like that, they'll be perfectly fine.
Join us tomorrow. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing upcycling. What that means is that we are going to be taking stuff that is around the house that you would normally throw away, and we're going to be making different arts and crafts and stuff like that with them. Friday, we're going to be making banana bread. Once again, if you're supposed to do poetry, we're not doing that. We're going to be doing that. And later on, we'll be making banana bread. I will be sending out the ingredients list. I'll also be putting it on Facebook too, so that way we can have fun with that. I see Sydney has a little snake thing there that she's showing too. That's awesome. And then, of course, we got sessions next week too. We're going to have a bunch of different fun things, including we're going to be going to the Lehigh Valley Zoo and hanging out with penguins. Did you know that most penguins actually like the heat. They don't hang out in the snow. I didn't know that. So we're going to be hanging out with some African penguins next Thursday, next Friday, right before 4th of July. We're going to be going to the York Revolution, which is a baseball team in York, Pennsylvania. But we're also going to be firing a real cannon and learning about the revolution too, as well as some baseball stuff. We have a Pilates class that's coming up that's going to be pretty unique. A whole bunch of other stuff. You could go to pavirtual.com and check out all the lessons under summer camp. Or if you have Facebook, you can see it on our Facebook page as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to look through this chat as well. If there's any questions that you had, I will be more than happy to forward them to Miss Brittany. I want to thank you so much, all of you, for the kind words and saying how much you enjoyed it. It's really, really nice to see. And I hope to see you guys tomorrow and throughout the summer. And don't forget, you got that passport, fill out, it's 1 or 2 sentences of what you learned. If you need help with anything, parents, just respond to that email. It comes directly to me. I'm happy to answer any questions. And one last thing, we will be posting this on YouTube in the coming days. So that way, if you had friends that wanted to kind of see what you saw about the snakes and stuff, you'd be able to share it with them, or if you just want to watch it yourself. So as well as our other lessons about Play-Doh, what we did with the bees yesterday, we'll be doing the same thing throughout the summer too. So until then, be safe. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Enjoy the weather. It's supposed to be nice everywhere all over the state. So do that and have fun.